Hello and welcome to this week's episode of The Failure Effect, a show about reclaiming the word failure and turning it into success. This week, we're speaking to a lady who has seen a lot in her very short life. She may argue about how short that life has been. But you know what? Let me not tell her story for her. Let's allow her to speak for herself. So, welcome to The Failure Effect, Betty Oloo-Anderson. How are you doing?
I'm fine where you are. Happy to
Mhm.
be here.
All right,
Yeah.
excellent. We're
Mm,
very, very happy to
mm,
have you here.
mm.
And your story was fascinating to me the very first time that I heard it because you've accomplished so much. Like you sit on boards, you've gotten all of these high profile jobs, but you never finished university, did you? I mean, you actually did you go to university?
Actually, I did not.
Uh-huh.
I'm still on my way there,
Uh-huh.
but I have the University of Experience.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
All right, excellent. So let's talk about how you acquired that experience that we're about to talk about because you have a context in which you came from and a reason why you didn't head over to university. So
Mm.
tell us a little bit about your childhood, how you grew up, where you grew up, and the circumstances that led to where you are today.
I was born somewhere in the 70s, the early 70s. I'm not shy about my age. So I was born in 1971
Mm-hmm.
on the 15th of February, bang in the middle of the month.
Mm-hmm.
The second child of Francis and Nancy Oloo. I have an older sister, Esther, and a younger brother, Albert. So classic middle child. Growing up those days was quite fun. I can say we grew up in Madaraka, um, and which was kind of middle class in those days. I mean, things were organized. City council flats, but you can't believe it. We had things were working then. It was a different time when even our garbage was collected by the city council. Our light bulbs, street lights were changed by the city council. All you had to do was call. We had phone booths. Anyway, at that time, I went to a primary school called Madaraka Primary School, which was the school in the estate. Pretty good education up to standard seven. So just missed the 844. I don't know
Right.
whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, but I think it's a good thing.
I think it's a good thing
Yeah,
too.
so pretty good system, 763.
Mm-hmm.
And I went to Limurgos. First of all, I didn't, my father died when I was in standard seven.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, my father died on 18th of February, just after my 12th birthday. And that's the time we were doing. In those days, you had to do pre-mocks to get your index number. And then the mocks were in the second term, and then standard seven exam CPE were somewhere in November. But at the time we were doing the pre-mocks, I had to go to Busia to bury my father. So my index wasn't the best. But well, I still got, I think it was 27 points out of 36.
Mm-hmm.
And was called to Ngara Girls. Yes.
That's where I went to high school. So
Yeah, I
yeah.
went to Ngara Girls, and in those days we had you went in your home clothes because the uniforms were not ready. They
Mhm.
took the measurements at the school and everything. Anyway, met a couple of friends in Ngara Girls, but then just after I got my uniform, I got called to the Great Limuru Girls School,
Wow.
Chalks,
Mm-hmm.
which is celebrating 100 years
Mm-hmm.
this year.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so from there, 1984, I was in Limuru Girls up to 1987. High school was good. Lots of values learnt in that great school. Lots of things that I still continue to do, like music and my Anglican faith that came from Limuru Girls. Um, and it also taught me how to be confident, how to speak well, how to speak good English, and how to articulate myself depending on the audience. That all I learned from Limuru Girls. From this shy uh, classic middle child girl, when I left Limuru, I was a different person. And I thank God for that education. So after high school came, yeah, those days we had to wait for 2, 3 months before our results came out. It's not like these days.
Mm-hmm.
So you had like 2 months to, faff around, just, going visiting. We used to have places in town. The Strikes restaurant. I don't know whether you remember Strikes and Wimpy. There was no Nando's. In those days, you had to go to town to get chips. It was quite a different time. And of course, there was the partying side. There was Carnival, which used to call the Vuras,
Mm-hmm.
and there was Vijo,
Mm-hmm.
Visions, Bubbles, and that was really my thing after Form 4. my O levels while waiting for exams, just getting up to no good. And when my results came, I didn't do very well. Um, for whatever reason, I was very disappointed. I could see the disappointment in my mom. And being a single mom, I think one of the things that you always worry about as a child is, does she have enough? Does she can she accommodate us? I mean, the things that we want. We, of course, we wanted to do everything everybody else was doing, but my mom did spoil us. I mean, she would go out of her way to make sure she provided for us.
Right.
So came decision time, after all levels. So what do you do? You go to college, or do you want to repeat? And I was like, repeating is not an option, because I have to get this job and start helping around the family. So the easiest way was to go to college, to typing school, secretarial school. Those days we used to call it secretarial schools, and it was typing, and it was shorthand, and English, business English, yeah, and just more fun times, of course,
Mhm.
being in college. And I went to first I went to Cambridge Secretarial College, which was where Visions used to be. And then I moved to Valley Business School in Kilimani, somewhere in Kilimani, yes. Made also great friends. There are some we were in school with in Limuru, at Limuru. Estendeti, Caroline Mulenge, those were my friends in college. And immediately after that, started working.
So, what was your first job when you started working? Where did you end up?
My first job, I remember getting home and I'd done many applications. On those days, you'd write applications by hand,
Yes.
and preferably, mom would say you have to take it yourself,
Hmm.
because she would talk to a friend. Okay, my daughter is looking for a job. Let her come and bring a letter. So you'd have to write by hand. So you write. There's no erase. You could write it 10 times.
Hmm.
Yeah. Anyway, so my first job, I had applied for a typist job at Cooper Motors
Hmm.
Limited, which was at CMC, was at Bunyala Road. No, not Bunyala Road, Lusaka Road, down Lusaka Road. And one day my mom comes home and she says, "You've gotten a job." I said, "Oh, wow." So, because CMC and Madaraka were walking distance, I could
Hmm.
walk to work, I could walk back. And she said, "It's in Kisumu." I said, "Mom, there's no way. How?
Oh my
How
goodness.
am I going to go to Kisumu? I mean, I don't know. I've never interacted that well with Luos and Indians. I don't know. I was scared. I was probably 20 years old. But there I was into our Pesi.
Hmm.
Flights were not the thing those days.
Hmm.
Jumped into our Pesi. Do you know what our Pesi is?
Absolutely.
The 4 5s or 504s
Yes. Yeah.
with the station
Usually.
wagon that
Yes.
could sit 9 people. Yeah.
Hmm.
So jumped into a Pesi, and there was
Yeah.
in Kisumu, not big lights, not big city, big lights, but
Back in the day, yeah.
smaller city.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and around this time, you got into a relationship.
No, no, not
Hmm.
really.
Okay.
Not really. At this time, we were just hanging out. There
Okay.
was not in any relationship.
Okay.
No,
All
I
right.
was really now into the working space, so
Mm-hmm.
not thinking in those lines. No.
Okay. All right.
Mm.
Fine. So you end up in Kisumu.
Yeah.
What were you doing exactly? Selling cars, fixing cars?
No, no, no. I was a typist. Remember,
Right.
I'd gone to secretarial college.
Yes.
So typist. There's a
Uh-huh.
thing called, I used to send telex. Do you know what a telex machine is?
Yes.
Okay. So we would send telex, and I remember, yeah, just operating the phone,
Uh-huh.
calling different branches,
Yeah.
filing invoices, getting invoices ready for customers. Just your general, a typist kind of little admin experience.
Mm-hmm.
But I remember in those days, I used to come home every Friday for Simbangoma. Do you know what Simbangoma is?
Betty, you forget you and I are literally the same age. So
Yeah. So
yeah.
would come home, Fridays again by Wepesi.
Yeah.
And people would ask me, "Did you fly? Were you at
Mm-hmm.
work today?" I said, "I was at work." Okay, what time did you get here? I got here at 7, because you leave at 2,
Mm-hmm.
5 hours near Nairobi. There was no traffic, there was no, it was easy to get to Nairobi.
Mm-hmm.
So I used to fly with Wepesi every other Friday for Simbangoma
Right.
from Kisumu.
Okay.
Hmm.
Okay. Did you happen to come back to Nairobi after this?
Yeah. So Cooper Motors was a stint about 6 months,
Mm-hmm.
and then I was called to head office. There was
Mm-hmm.
a vacancy, so I came to head office. And within 3 months, I got another job at DT Dobie,
Yeah.
the Mercedes people.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, worked for DT Dobie from that time. I would say this is about 1989
Mm-hmm.
or 1990 actually, up to around 92.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. DCW was working as customer service. I could look at any Mercedes and tell you who it belonged to because I was at the customer service desk for the Mercedes Benz. Yeah.
Okay. And I believe at this time you were known as a rundo of people, I suppose, the Dobie girls, the DT Dobie girls.
No, there was
No?
no such thing. We
Okay.
were just known as Betty, and the other lady was called Sarah. I think I can't remember. The one was
Uh-huh.
on the Nissan side. I was on the Mercedes side,
Right.
Nissan side. Yeah.
Okay.
So we were just, we were at the customer service desk. I'm sure it's changed now.
Mm-hmm.
But in those days, you would, it was about, typing the job card, making sure the customer is updated onto where the progress of the work on his car.
Mm-hmm.
And then when they come into the reception, calling the service advisor saying, bring the car out. It
Mm-hmm.
was very interesting because I started knowing about parts of cars. And this uh, now even is very relevant in my life right now.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So how long did you work at Didi Dobie for?
You know what, you are, if I go through each job that I
Yeah.
I went through,
Yeah.
we would be here until tomorrow. But
Mm-hmm.
I'll kind of summarize for you if that's
Yes.
okay.
Yes.
So I worked at DTW until 1992,
Mm-hmm.
where in those days I think it was an election year, and then there was Kanu, there was YK 92.
Mm-hmm.
Was it YK 92? Yeah.
Yes.
And there was all these Jirongo and Kanu elections, and I got a stint of working in the press office of
Mm-hmm.
not YK 92, but Kanu.
Mm-hmm.
So I worked for a guy called Salim Juma,
Yes.
the late Salim Juma,
Yeah.
sending out press releases, and there were a lot in those days, as you can imagine.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, it was a short stint, but very exciting. Like every 2 minutes, you're sending out a press release,
Mm-hmm.
and coming from just typing a, a job card and or typing a letter. Now,
Uh-huh.
this is something you have to kind of sit and understand what is being trying, what they try, what the message is going out is,
Mm-hmm.
and a different stint, short but really good.
Yeah.
And of course, after Kanu won elections, then we became jobless because it was just for the election period.
Yes.
But the money was good, short and sweet. But yeah, so after that's 92. I did a few, short-term contract jobs, not really any permanent ones, uh, but never lacked in terms of anything to do. From that, I think one of the next long-term job I had was at the Nairobi Hilton,
Mm-hmm.
where I worked for the sales and banqueting manager, um, functions, events.
Mm-hmm.
So planning events, talking to clients, getting suppliers, looking at the meeting rooms, talking to the menu, to the chef about the menu. And I worked with my cousin Millie, who was then the first lady to be the assistant F&B manager at Nairobi Hilton.
Mm-hmm.
And another different kind of experience you can imagine. So from cars to
Yeah.
to politics,
Yeah. Yeah.
now in the hotel industry,
Yes.
and worked there until about 97, and that now changed to what I'm currently doing.
Okay.
So I moved into the development world
Yeah.
where I worked for a French NGO called Action contre la faim,
Mm-hmm.
Action Against Hunger, and was there working in the region office, which supported 5 countries: Burundi, Tanzania, Somalia, Ethiopia, and DRC.
Mm-hmm.
And was there until 99 when we were retrenched.
Okay.
At this, I think I was 25 at this, or 26 when we were
When you were
retrenched.
first retrenched. Now,
Yes.
okay, well, I think, and for me, this is the most important thing is um, dealing with the energy around the retrenchment process? Because, as you can imagine, since COVID,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of businesses around the world, not just in Kenya, have been hit very hard by
Mm-hmm.
the tough economic times.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of economies don't seem to be finding their footing too much. Kenya is currently going through a recession on
Right.
its own. So a lot of people are losing their jobs.
Mm-hmm.
So, how did you handle it? Because I think there's a lesson there for people who are also going through the same thing.
I think first of all, that was a different time,
Yeah.
right? And being a secretary or a PA or an assistant, admin assistant,
Mm-hmm.
um, it cuts across, different industries.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, when we were informed that the region office of ACF was closing, it was shocking, and you don't know what to do. You're still young. I just moved out of home,
Mm-hmm.
so I'm like, now how am I going to pay rent? These problems.
Yeah.
I'm not supposed to be facing them.
Yeah.
But I think what I did was really remain in touch with my colleagues at ACF and said, if you need, for me to come and file accounts or help with the reporting to the donors, even if it's 2 days a week, I can come in. So really just keeping in touch with my fellow colleagues, or if you hear anything
Mm-hmm.
that you think I can do, in your circles of, country directors, I'm available.
Mm-hmm.
So that, I was retrenched, had a month of reflection
Yes.
because there's something else happening in my life at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And within a month, I was called back to go and close the big project they had in Somaliland.
Right.
Now, remember Somaliland because that comes into play in my current situation.
Okay.
Yeah. So while I was closing these accounts, and again, one of the things in that time, it also helps to be in touch with your friends or letting your friends know this is the situation. And because while I was closing the accounts for this project, I got an opportunity to go and work for Coca-Cola,
Okay.
Coca-Cola Africa,
Mm-hmm.
because somebody was going on maternity leave.
Aha.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
And then this started a series of sort of like, was it temp jobs?
So it was a temp job,
Mm-hmm.
but I worked in various. I wasn't a permanent
Yeah.
employee. I was contracted.
Mm-hmm.
So I ended up in Coca Cola. This is Coca Cola Northern Africa division.
Yeah.
For those Coke alumni, they know KO,
Mm-hmm.
Kenya office
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
of Coca Cola was managing 39 countries in Africa.
Wow.
So you can imagine the exposure.
Yeah.
I mean, Coke in those days was one of the best employers. I'm not saying that it's not now, but it was a wonderful place to work. So I worked for the East Africa region manager. Then I moved to, with my little French knowledge,
Mm-hmm.
I moved to Middle East and Northern Africa, not North Middle East and islands.
Mm-hmm.
So working with countries like Comoros, Mauritius, La Réunion, DRC, and this was operations. And then I moved finally to division of operations before somebody in Atlanta decided to change the division and move the division from Nairobi to
Two.
Casablanca.
Right.
So then I was retrenched again.
Again.
Yes.
Oh wow. What is it like when it happens a second time? Are you ready or are you even less ready? I don't know.
I think in this world you should be prepared for anything.
Yeah.
Having been retrenched at ACF, where I was very confident I was going to. This is an NGO. I can work here until I'm 60.
Mm-hmm.
So and then something happens and you're retrenched. So you start learning how to be on your toes.
Okay.
So we were given in those days. Coca-Cola was very good to us. So
Mm-hmm.
they even had an ambulance downstairs in case somebody gets a bit.
Ooh, I think a lot
Yes,
of
we had a
Kenyan
we had a
employers need
yeah
to understand that. Yeah.
we had a lot of care
Yeah.
by the company and how they managed the retrenchment, because you can imagine the people who had worked there for 20 years,
Mm-hmm.
people who had never done a CV because their CV was in hard copy,
Yeah.
typed. So now, we had career talks. We had people coming to do psychometric testing.
Mm-hmm.
We had, recruitment companies coming to talk to us. And then, of course, you start, because you're dealing with suppliers as well. You tell them, now I don't have a job.
Mm-hmm.
So from Coke, I went to work for Monia International,
Wow.
selling billboard space.
Right.
Yeah.
You've done a lot.
It's
Like,
and
uh-huh.
as I talk, it's not
Mhm.
something that I'm thinking about. It's
Mhm.
just I'm like, okay, actually, wow, I've worked in quite a number of different industries.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so I went to work for Monia International, and they were a supplier of Coke.
Right.
So went, and I think the time I was doing my first sale, then another opportunity came up,
Mm-hmm.
and this opportunity is linked to my previous experience working for ACF.
Yes.
So I moved to work for the European Union,
Okay.
the
Wow.
Somali Health Desk.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hmm.
How was that? I mean, okay, well, first of all, even before we get there, it's just you're doing all of this on the strength of recommendations from other jobs because, I don't know how important it was back in the day that you at least have a first degree. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, how was that for you?
I think I'm the kind of person, when I'm given an opportunity,
Mm-hmm.
I grab it and I do the best I can,
Yeah.
and absorb as much as I can. So you're telling me I type letters. Okay, what am I typing about?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let me read, what's this company about? So how do things work here? So you sort of get to learn what the business of the organization is.
Mm-hmm.
And in that learning, then you become also a champion of that business.
Yeah.
So wherever you are, you're talking about that business. Oh, okay, wow. So, people start seeing something,
Mm-hmm.
in
Mm-hmm.
you. So for me, it was by learning,
Mm-hmm.
by really getting into the business of things, and doing the best I can.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and again, when an opportunity comes, can somebody volunteer to do this? Yeah,
Yeah,
I
that would
will.
be you.
Yeah,
Okay, so
you know
this
me from Rotary. Yeah,
yes, 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 I do.
yeah,
That is indeed you.
yeah.
But then also, once again,
Mm,
because I'm pretty sure there are people out there who are having to deal with being retrenched once again.
mm-hmm,
And that is often the point where a lot of people feel like the universe has called me a failure. Who am
mm,
I to exist beyond this?
mm.
So how do you get over that feeling?
I think one of the things that I've learned is not to be defined by my job.
Right.
Yeah, because I'm Betty Oloo-Anderson.
Yes.
It doesn't change.
Mm-hmm.
Whether I'm working for Coke, whether I'm working for UNFPA, whether I'm still Betty Oloo,
Mm-hmm.
and that's my brand.
Right.
So wherever I am, whether it's socially, doing my community service, I still remain Betty Oloo. So I shouldn't be defined by one part of Betty.
Mm-hmm.
When I'm singing in my church choir, I'm still Betty Oloo. So I think the thing people need to learn how not to be defined by their jobs, because when that is pulled out, then you kind of feel lost, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And I suppose it also opens the doors, at least for yourself psychologically,
Yeah.
to other opportunities. Because if you walk
Exactly.
around thinking all I
Yeah.
am is a marketer,
Mm.
then you will never see anything else that you could possibly do outside of marketing. So, yeah, I
Yeah.
agree with you.
Mm.
Okay. All right. So, how did you bounce back?
Where were we again?
We were back in Somaliland.
Oh, no, no, no. I think um, we'd moved. Oh, yes. Oh, yeah. We're at the European Union.
Yes, yes.
Somali
Yes,
Health
the
Sector
Somali desk.
Coordination.
Yes.
Worked for a wonderful guy called Dr. Imanol. And we were coordinating the health sector of Somalia.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when I tell you coordinating, in those days, there was no government.
Yeah.
So it was kind of like uh, a, an office or a desk that would coordinate the health activities in Somalia.
Mm-hmm.
And by health, I mean everything from TB, malaria, HIV,
Wow.
reproductive health, a bit of gender based violence, looking at health system strengthening,
Mm-hmm.
laboratories,
Mm-hmm.
human resource for health.
Wow.
And when I went for the interview, I remember one of the practical was to sit in a meeting and to do be a rapporteur.
Mm-hmm.
And you can imagine doctors, the acronyms. I'm telling you, I went home, I was biting my nails. I was like, how am I ever gonna learn this? But
Yeah.
I did a pretty good job of it, and I got the job.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember telling my boss at the time, Dr. Iman, I was like, how will I ever know these things?
Mm-hmm.
And he says, the more you listen, the more you listen and more and get with and read and get interested, the more you will be an expert.
Mm-hmm.
And that was in 2001, just after millennium. And I worked for Dr. Imanol up to 2004.
Mm-hmm.
And coordinating the health sector of Somalia means you're working with the government, you're working with the donors,
Yeah.
you're working with the UN, you're working with numerous NGOs,
Mm-hmm.
and to some extent, people living with whatever disease, like HIV.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and you're facilitating all these committees and working groups and putting together reports which have to go to the donors, sitting the donors, following on action points. Very That role really built who I am today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm.
Wow. So where did you take because you're not there right now, right?
No,
So something must have happened in the interim between then and now.
I was poached.
Ah,
So it wasn't a
excellent.
retrenchment.
Uh-huh.
Well, in 2003, 2002, the Global Fund was formed to fight against AIDS, TB, and malaria.
Yeah.
And looking at Somalia, you can imagine a country at that time, not now, now it's quite developed. At that time, trying to put a proposal to address these issues there. You can imagine with that
Yeah.
kind of context,
Yeah.
not very many structured a decentralized government.
Mm-hmm.
So trying to look at how do we get together. So we had all these committees, and we had something called the Health Sector Committee,
Yeah.
and we decided let's try and apply, and we did the proposal, and we applied for malaria, and we got it. We applied for TB, and we got it. Now, while we were discussing about the TB, one of the organizations approached me and said, if we win the TB grant, we would like you to come and work for it as a senior program manager for it,
Mm-hmm.
um, to manage the whole grant uh, for the organization. It was World Vision.
Right.
And for sure, they did win. And December 2004, I joined World Vision.
Wow.
Yeah,
Excellent.
yeah.
So in all of this time, how is your personal life doing?
Busy.
Uh-huh.
Um, okay, not so busy. There's a balance because now I've really immersed myself into this development world where I'm really getting interested, understanding how TB and malaria are connected, how reproductive health is connected to HIV,
Mm-hmm.
pregnant women, that kind of thing. So I really immersed myself in my work. But I still, had a little of a social life.
Mm-hmm.
I was a hasher. Do you remember the
Yeah.
hashers, Nairobi hasher
Yes,
areas?
yes.
So I used to run on Mondays.
Uh-huh.
So that was a bit of my social life.
Mm-hmm.
I was very active in terms of in the rugby fraternity, sitting in various committees, looking at women's rugby. I remember we started a rugby, a small rugby team at Kenya Harlequins called the Queens,
Mm-hmm.
and got into a project of building them the making sure that they had a changing rooms.
Yeah.
Then I also got into a bit of leadership
Mm-hmm.
and got onto the board of Impala Club.
Mm-hmm.
And we really turned around the club from what it was then. We built a gym, we built a poolside restaurant. Okay, not now. And now I know there are issues, but
Mm-hmm.
in those days we'd really built that club.
Mm-hmm.
So then my leadership skills started jamokaing.
Yeah.
So I was quite happy to serve. So a bit of service again. Personal life, you mean what?
Relationships, because I mean, one of the things that we know about you, I think, is about your marriage, which was a lovely one by all
Mm,
accounts, and I'm
mm-hmm,
sure we'll get to that in a
mm,
bit.
mm,
But before that,
mm-hmm.
what was happening?
So you know, can I go back a little bit and,
Yes.
and and talk about that part of my life
Yes.
a little bit?
Mm-hmm.
I'll be as quick as I can.
Okay.
So high school days, the usual high school letters. I remember there was some boy in Lenana, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and after high school, the group thing, not really serious relationships, just somebody you go to the movies with, somebody you go to the hang with. Um, is it still called the hang?
Yes, I
Yeah.
will.
I think it's called the dunda.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody who you would dunda with in those
Mm-hmm.
days.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I think maybe when I was at ACF, I met somebody and we did get engaged.
Mm-hmm.
We did get engaged, but it didn't end well.
Okay.
Um, I don't want to talk about that.
Okay.
It didn't end well, and
Mm-hmm.
I became a little bit jaded about relationships because we were engaged to be married.
Mm-hmm.
Um, After that, nothing really serious until
Mm-hmm.
I was 30, 33. I met
Yeah.
somebody
Mm-hmm.
and he worked out of the country
Mm-hmm.
and we dated for almost 14 years.
14
Yeah,
years
yeah.
dating.
Dating. But by
Okay.
dating, meaning that now when I think about it, is that when he was in town, we
Yeah.
were together.
Yeah.
When he was away, he was working. And
Okay.
so was I.
Was he abroad, like off the continent, or?
No, no, within the continent, but out of Kenya.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. Mm.
All right.
And I guess it was convenient for both of us because I'm also now going to Somalia, traveling
Yeah.
around. I'm so immersed in my work, but also I must admit that there were some family obligations that just didn't have allow me any time to think about like dating or
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, we dated for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. We were in this relationship for a while.
Okay. 14 years later, I mean, it sounds practically like a marriage. So
Mm.
there must be a reason why this is not the husband that you have famously talked about, you know?
Yeah. I think as you grow older, and I think at this point I was in my 40s,
Yeah.
you start growing into yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And self was not this person who wanted to be in a message of WhatsApp.
Mm-hmm.
Because I remember it was the WhatsApp, looking at the WhatsApp, and I was like, but I want the person here, you
Yeah.
know? But also, I think a lot of self reflection and realizing, okay, I don't want to be in this space and I don't want this person to be also to be unhappy in the same space. So
Mm-hmm.
the best way is to just, separate. And we amicably
Okay.
separated
Okay.
in, I think it was September 2014. I
Okay.
remember the day. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So would it be fair to say that you found real love, real, actual, genuine, sustainable love,
Mm.
at what a lot of people would say is a fairly advanced stage? Is the reason why I'm asking about, fairly advanced, because there's this myth that once a woman hits 35 or
Mm.
34, then love is out of bounds for her. You've hit this fictional thing called the wall, you know. So would it be fair to say that about your experience?
You've already said it. It's a
Yeah.
myth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Because love doesn't know any age.
Yeah.
You can find love anywhere, anywhere, For as long as my thinking is for as long as your heart is open,
Hmm.
sometimes we're so jaded and by past experiences. But here was if I tell you my past experiences in my relationship, some are not so nice,
Yeah.
but I believe in love and I believe in companionship and I wasn't even really looking
Yeah.
because and I was very confident and comfortable in my space to actually let this other relationship go
Hmm.
before I started dating. I mean, it was 2 years before I started dating my husband.
Right.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
How did you meet your husband?
Oh
Because
my
that
God,
is
that's a
such a,
story.
yes.
You've not watched The Engage?
I have, but I'd like you to tell it to us again.
So one Sunday afternoon, very comfortable in my space. I usually go to church. At the time, I used to go to All Saints Cathedral. You know how you have a routine, drive to the fuel the car, get water, drinking water for the week. So I usually used to fuel my car, still do, at the Shell, the Sean Gaston on James
Mm-hmm.
Gishuru Road.
Yes.
Yeah. And I thought, let me get into the convenience store and get a pie. And they have a nice deli inside there. And so I went and ordered the pie and I picked my water and went back to the pie station to pick my pie.
Mm-hmm.
And the lady asked me the lady on the counter asked me, "Can I help you?" And I said, "No, you've already helped me. I'm just waiting for my pie. Thank you." And my pie came, and I went and paid for my water, and I left.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when I left, I opened the door of my car, put my things inside, got into my car. But when you have one foot still outside,
Yeah.
this guy walks up to me and says, "Hey." So I was like, "Hey," and then he says, "You're very attractive." I'm like, "What? What? It's a Sunday afternoon. Come on, really?"
Mm-hmm.
And he said, "I watched you in the shop, and you spoke so well. Very articulate to the lady behind the counter. It's very rare to get people who speak like that." And I said, "What?" And he said, "My name is Mike, and I'd really like to buy coffee." You know, that was it. And I'm like, how can somebody just walk up to me and talk to me on a Sunday, usually, because people say sometimes I look very serious. It would take somebody introducing the guy to me, then, or a few doubles later, or but
Yeah.
this guy just he
Mm-hmm.
confidently walked up to me and said, "Hey," no cheesy opening lines. He just said what he saw.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, "Who's this guy?" But I kind of knew who he was because he
Mm-hmm.
was somebody we all knew,
Yeah.
back in the day. And I was like, "This is Mike Anderson," and that's how we met. And he took my number. Rather flashed me so that he makes sure he has the right number, and has started texting me SMS, not WhatsApp,
Mm-hmm.
words. And Mike was very articulate with English, even when he wrote and when and started calling me, good morning calls, good night calls, asking me how I am, really refreshing,
Mm-hmm.
like really old school, not sup.
Mm-hmm.
Where you
Yeah.
at? No, 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 no. Very, very, very intentional texting and communicating to me of how he felt about me.
Right.
Yeah.
I think the reason why I asked you to tell us the story again
Mm,
is not only do women get attacked with this wall myth, but we're also told you have to go to specific places to meet the man of your dreams. It needs to be a church, or it needs to be, the club or whatever it is. But it is possible to find love exactly where you are, whatever state you're in. Yeah.
exactly my point where you are.
Mm-hmm.
You have to open your heart. And
Yeah.
somebody said to me something about um not inside voice, but sometimes we have to kind of be soft,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
be a little bit girly.
Yeah.
Women who grow older become kind of, I don't know whether because of life circumstances. I'm not saying we become hardened, but we just become unaware of that we're still girls,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and that sometimes may make men shy away. Women are very strong.
Yeah.
My male friends tell me, "Hey, you women, because we are very strong."
Yeah.
Um, so it might put somebody off.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure that I was soft, maybe because I was wearing my Sunday dress from church. I was looking holy.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, for sure, later on when I married Mike, he was like, "Man, you're a tough cookie." So, but you're still so mushy inside.
Yeah.
So, just learning to lean on that softness as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm,
So we're getting to the end of this session. So I'm just going to run through a few
mm.
things. You had a happy marriage. How long were you married?
I was married for 1.5 years.
1.5 years. And then what happened?
So when I met Mike, I think on our third date, second or third date, he told me that he had been diagnosed with early signs of Parkinson's.
Okay.
And to me, it didn't matter. And
Yeah.
we took the journey together. We had a
Mm-hmm.
wonderful relationship before even we got married.
Mm-hmm.
We had a wonderful marriage, even up to when he got really sick.
Mm-hmm.
And I think our love for each other is what kept him, um, you know, uh, kept him well and cheerful through the journey and until the very end.
Mm-hmm.
Um, y- yeah, he was tough till the end. He was strong till the end, and I
Right.
think it's because of the love we had each other. We had
Mm-hmm.
jokes about Parkinson's. He never refused to take his medication.
Yeah.
He was very strong, and I think it's just because I was strong enough for me. So I think the way when I look at it, I look at uh, there's a reason why I met Mike when I did,
Mm-hmm.
and whether God put us in that place
Mm-hmm.
because He knew that Mike needed to be loved in a special way during his life,
Yeah.
and I think it came at the right time. That's how I want to look at it. Yeah,
Okay, which is excellent. So it's been a while now. This is the bit that we have not heard yet because
yeah,
at the time
yeah.
your husband's illness was alive and it was still a present issue.
Mm,
So what's it been like ever since with the healing journey? It's strictly this is not classified as a failure. Neither of you failed, but it
yeah.
is worth discussing how you have mourned and
Mm.
recovered and moved forward.
I can say grief is a journey.
Yeah.
It never ends. There are waves, but you have to be what's helped me is to be self-aware. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I reflect a lot after a week. I'm like, okay, so how am I feeling? How has my week been? I journal and I, what was the trigger for me being so sad?
Mm-hmm.
And then once you identify those triggers, you somehow learn how to start coping with the triggers, and it gets easier. It never ends, but I can say it gets easier. I want to remember Mike, the happy days, happier as a, not the sickness,
Yeah.
but the Mike I fell in love with.
Mm-hmm.
I was still in love with him even when he was sick, but I try to focus on the good,
Mm-hmm.
So I met a friend of mine. Her mom is a widow, and she told me there are three words, and these three words I always tell anyone who's grieving: accept, adjust, advance.
Uh-huh.
And reflecting on those three words every so often helps, because you have to look at, where am I? Have I accepted? Am I advancing? Or you don't even, sometimes you realize, oh, yes, this means I have advanced. But those three words really help me. And sometimes it's a yo-yo. I kind of be at advanced mode, and then something triggers, and I'm like Mike is really gone,
Mm-hmm.
but in a lighter way.
Mm-hmm.
So it's been interesting. I remember recently somebody called me Mike's widow, and I got so cross, and I was like, no, I'm not Mike's widow. I'm
Yeah.
Mike's wife,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
not widow,
Yeah.
or the late Mike's wife, because
Yeah.
those are some of the triggers. When you're taking a form and you have to tick widow, then you realize, okay, that reminds you, oh yes, okay, but I'm still Betty.
Yes. Yeah.
Doesn't stop me from being Betty alone. So it's been quite a journey, in terms of even getting advances from people, or from all corners. In fact, the corners that you least expect, you're like, okay, seriously. But everything has to be done with grace, and
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Okay.
you move on. Yeah.
Well, this
Mm,
is excellent. I mean, your life is a series of exciting, unexpected opportunities, I would say, So if
mm,
you had one word for someone who is struggling to find their authentic self so that they can navigate the challenges, that are presented, most especially in the workplace, what would you
mm.
say to them?
I would say absorb,
Mm-hmm.
absorb as much as you can. Do the best you can with take every opportunity to do the best you can. Whatever's given, opportunity is given to you, don't take it for granted. Grab it, run with it, try and thrive in it, learn. Don't just sit and do your daily tasks. Get something else. Volunteer and say, I want to help. You guys, how can I help this department, and how can I? That's how you grow.
Mm-hmm.
You can imagine, for me, from being a typist, having to worked in all these industries, it's made me who I am today.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I serve on some boards. I'm in leadership in our Rotary Club.
Yes.
Um, and all this has happened because of just grabbing every opportunity. Never undermine your networks.
Mm-hmm.
Be good, do good to people, be good to people, because
Mm-hmm.
people never forget.
Mm-hmm.
There's that saying that Maya Angelou says, people will remember how you made them feel. What is it?
Yes. They
Yeah,
won't remember what you told them. They'll remember how you made
how
them
you
feel.
made them feel.
Yeah.
And just do good,
Yeah.
be good to people, show up.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes we're shy of showing up.
Yeah.
You get an opportunity to show up and you don't show up
Mm-hmm.
because something else has come up. Yet that opportunity that you were supposed to show up for would have led to another opportunity.
Opportunity.
So show up when you can.
Yes,
Put on
indeed.
your heels, put on your lippy, and
Yeah.
put on your dress and show up.
Right.
Yeah.
And on that excellent piece of advice, I will bid you all goodbye. If you would like to get in touch with Betty Oloo-Anderson, please make sure to follow the social media handles that you see in front of you on the screen. Otherwise, we shall see you next week for another one just like this one.